My greatest passion of the last 2 years is the severe Russian north. It all started when I failed a COVID test in March last year and had to cancel my plans and just had to go somewhere, and I went up north to Teriberka. It was crazy cold and crazy cool. You know, the Arctic Ocean, or okay, Barents Sea, whatever, the northern lights, the night, the abandoned houses, and you're just on the edge of the world. I was so impressed that I decided to come back, but to come back in the summer to see the difference. The only way to get to Teriberka is by car, and either you rent it in the city of Murmansk, or, which is much easier, you join an excursion trip. And that's what I did. It takes about 2.5 or 3 hours to get there. At first, the road looks quite plain and not much to look at. And you're not supposed to get into any adventures in summer. Not like in winter, because in winter you can get stuck in snow for a few hours. Or it can be much worse, the road can be closed for a few days and you will have to wait for a chance to get in or out Teriberka. By the way, these windmills mark the transition from taiga to tundra. We made a stop here. Teriberka sign. The scenery has definitely changed for the best. It looks really unusual. According to ancient Sami tradition, you can make a construction of rocks and make a wish. Not really believing in this stuff, I did it. I just tried. Surely you can always think it's a coincidence, but my wish that I made, it was so complex. It was so not really clear even to me, and it came true during my trip. Can you imagine that? It came true during my trip. It was very hard, the process of making this wish come true. I was so amazed. Also, we had some really interesting conversations with the guide. She said that there's such a thing as a balance of power, also, as I remember, according to Sami people. And the idea is that you don't have to tolerate something which is not really yours. You have to push and to change everything to make it just the way you want it. So don't be afraid to make wishes and change your life dramatically. Moving on. 2 more landmarks, letting you know that you are finally very close. And the weather is greeting you as well. So you don't forget that you're up in the north, even if it's August. We are driving to our hotel. Checking in really fast to continue exploring Teriberka. Here in Teriberka, you can often hear something like, "Oh wow, it's like in Norway." And there will be someone who will say, "Why you say Norway? It's like in Russia." Don't want to cut this road. It's beautiful. We made a stop at the shipwreck graveyard. What an atmosphere! Now we're driving further. This whale tail was made by a Russian film director, Zvyagintsev, who filmed a movie here called Leviathan. I tried to watch it, I couldn't, it's way too gloomy and depressive. What a severe beauty. Now we're on our way to the so-called Old Teriberka, where it all started. The art object made of old boats. And here is the famous Teriberka swing. A place for taking photos and videos. Some more stuff to see here. It was very, very cold and windy. Walking along the coast is a must-do thing, looking at this old ship. The history of Teriberka just in short, because it's better you Google it. It reminds me of the stories of the most Moscow factories, which were thriving during the USSR, and then they were degrading with it, and then they failed and stopped, and in the New Russia times, they all turned into fancy lofts, offices for hipsters. And the same with Teriberka, it turned into a touristic place, really fancy and cool. And now tourists just go around those abandoned houses and say, wow. So it used to be a promising industrial village, so authorities decided to build a really big school. That's where we're going now. Just look at it. It used to be, and still is, the biggest building in Teriberka. Yeah, I think it still is. Now it stands as the most popular ruins here. The guide tells us to watch for the signs on the walls. We'll have a look at that later. The gym. You get to think about stuff in places like this. It says, it's impossible to live in this world, but there is no other place to live in. Let us never say goodbye to each other. Now heading for some more depressive stuff, just ordinary abandoned houses. Here is one. And this one is still functioning, people live there. Checking in the Arctic Brewery. Look at this severe and northern-looking man. That's a new restaurant. And this is the only or one of the few shops here, and it's closed. And just a couple of shots of Teriberka at night. More whale tails. And now, what we've all been waiting for, freediving in the Arctic Ocean. This is the main attraction of this specific tour I've chosen. All getting dressed and ready, it really took some time. This thick swimsuit is crazy narrow and hard to wear. The experience taught me in practice to go through stuff you cannot really change. Right before Teriberka, I was on a sailing trip around the White Sea. By the way, you can see wonderful shorts about this trip. So what happened? I started to walk around the yacht to make a nice video without a life jacket, and the captain saw it and said, "Why are you walking around without a life jacket?" And I was so scared that I jumped into a cockpit and I just, so I crashed into the edge of a cockpit with my ribs. And it really hurt during Teriberka. I felt really bad and I was so scared to dive because it was making it worse and it was hard to breathe. But you just make yourself relax and forget about it. And you succeed, finally you succeed. And after you take off this swimsuit, you feel just great. You feel like you won this life. And here are the videos. I couldn't really dive because, as they say, you need to be totally relaxed for it. And I've got a problem with being relaxed. But it occurred to me that I could just climb down the seaweed, and it worked. So I did manage to get the taste of freediving. What else can you do in Teriberka? Take a boat. And here is one more severe-looking northern man. Just take in the atmosphere. It is basically the Arctic Ocean. We didn't manage to see whales, but we saw some seals. And this is how Teriberka restaurant looks like. Some really cool panoramic views. And this is how our gastronomic dinner looked like. We had it at the hotel. Now proud freedivers. But unfortunately, after that dinner, I felt really bad in the morning. Now the last third day of the trip, some more walking around some more beautiful places. Dragon Eggs Beach. When I was here in winter, I saw a man windsurfing. Can you imagine that? He really reminded me of Body from the movie Point Break 2015, one of my favorite movies ever. Oh my god, this northern nature is so fascinating and magical and weird and queer. And now it is time to say goodbye to Teriberka. I got some cloudberry and reindeer meat as souvenirs. The Murmansk airport is really plain, but cozy. Destination Moscow. So, I did my best to transfer to you my love to the Russian north. So it happens that I've been to Teriberka, I've been to Karelia. You can see a short video about this trip, as I said. And what about the plans for the future? I wish I can go to Said Ozera. It's a place where, as they say, the Hyperborea used to be. It's an ancient civilization, really high civilization, and I think the only way to find it out whether it is true or not is to go there and try to feel it. And that's what I'm looking for during my trips, the feeling of something non-standard, something new, something that changes you and makes you wider.